great. You can see my screen now, guys. So I want to remind you, I'm not reviewing this right now, but I just have to remind you guys that the rubric is on that 10-point scale. If you haven't looked at it already, I've posted a video that goes through it. So check out my YouTube channel and you can find that where I break down this rubric. But just Google 2020 APUSH rubric, and I recommend you work with it over the next couple days. So just reminding you, we're now on that 10-point scale. I'm still learning the 10-point scale, but that's what I'm going to try to, have in mind as I'm looking at this sample DBQ and thinking about it. So, all right. So this was from the 2019 AP test. This is last year. So all of the kids at your school who are seniors this year, this was their prompt. On that PDF, guys, I want you to open up to page 17. I'll give you like 15 seconds to get there, and go ahead and open up to page 17 on that PDF. I want to read this essay with you, and you can spend as much time as you want looking at the analysis of this essay, because the College Board will tell you all of the different points, what they think is good and what they think is bad, and why this got the point here and or why it didn't. I'm just going to give you my own commentary and my own spin on it. I'm not going to read, the entire narrative that College Board and explanation provides. So you have the link. You can go through it at your leisure. I just want to kind of read through it relatively fluidly. I'll stop a few times as I'm reading through it, but I just want to show you what I personally like about it. And I just have to remind you guys, a lot of us are still struggling with the sourcing, and you got to use those sentence starters. You have to remember, for this rubric, we've got these sourcing points where you're talking about the viewpoints. You could talk about the context or the audience if you want to, but the easiest way to do that, guys, and again, you're not reinventing the wheel. Use this sentence starter. The viewpoint of the document proves or helps me understand blah, blah, blah. You got to always go back to your thesis. Some of you guys who aren't scoring so hot on these practice ones, it's not that your thesis isn't good. It's just that you're not going back to it. It's after you've made the thesis claim, you're then just summarizing documents without continually proving why those documents make your thesis statement true or an intelligent academic statement to say. So steal that sentence starter. Write it down right now if you have to. The viewpoint of document X demonstrates the North American colonists didn't want to instantly break away from Great Britain, for example. You know it. Use those sentence starters. So cool. Now that I've just kind of recapped you on that and refreshed your memory and got you into that mindset of that 10-point rubric and using those sentence starters, let's see what this score gets. I'll take the mystery out of it. This one gets the perfect score. This one gets a 7. The second example gets a 5. And then the third example gets a 2. And all of this information is contained in this big 30-page PDF. So anyhow, let's rock and roll. Oh, gosh, guys. Look at me. I supplied you with the wrong link. Don't worry. It'll only take me a few seconds. 2018 APUSH DBQ. Man, what do they pay me for? I linked you to 2019, and I needed to link you to 2018. And let me just triple check that this is now the right one. It is, and I'm going to post it in the chat. Oh, I love when I make mistakes in front of everyone. That's so nice. Paste. Bam. There we go, guys. New link. Check that out. Open that one up. And then I want you to open this one up to page 13. Sorry for the false start. This is actually from 2018, not 2019. I got all confuzzled. This is the one you guys did for number 3. This is about American foreign policy shifting. So I just linked you to the wrong one. Will someone please confirm with me that they that I now have linked you to the right one, and page 13 is right?
I found it.
Sweet. Okay. Sorry again for the false start, guys. So anyhow, even if it wasn't working, I'm screen sharing with you. So hopefully you can see this, and let's go through it. So this is the good DBQ. Let's remind ourselves what the prompt is. Anytime we're going to read a sample DBQ, it always is important to remind ourselves the prompt. You don't need to scroll up there. I'll scroll up there for us. Geez, how high are they going to put it? Evaluate the relative importance of different causes for the expanding role of the United States in the world from the period 1865 to 1910. So they didn't make those years up out of nowhere, guys. They instantly wanted you to start talking about American industrialization right after the Civil War, 1865. Evaluate the importance of different causes for the expanding role of the United States in the world from this period. We've got to understand what the prompt is asking us. What the hell is this thing asking us to do? It's asking us to identify multiple reasons why the United States is going to play a larger role. And for those of you that have been paying attention to this series, you already know that the market revolution or economic output is going to play a huge part of that. But understand the prompt. That's the first thing you guys got to do. Read this multiple times. Plan on it being wordy and kind of confusing. They're not going to give you something that's like super simple in one simple sentence. It's probably going to be a compound sentence, maybe even 2 sentences. So I can't express this enough. You've got to read the prompt multiple times and be very, very sure you're clear on the task. Now that we're clear on the task and we know we're identifying factors that cause us to change our role in the world, let's go back down to 13 and let's start finally, after all this blabbing I've done, read a good essay. All right. See if they started off with some good context before a claim. As the Civil War came to a close, the previously Confederate South seemed to be in shambles. Cities were destroyed, properties looted, no labor force for their esteemed cotton. Yet the North seemed to be enjoying a rapid increase in the economy and the expansion of industrialization. That's a great amount of context. I bet you they're going to write more, but I would probably give that the context point just there. Context point should be your opening few sentences, folks. This can in part be attributed to the favorable tariffs, like the Morrill Tariff, passed during wartime years, and better technology and mechanization that allowed corporations to thrive in the post-war years, such as U.S. Steel and Standard Oil. Yet as time went on, the growing sense of surplus of manufactured goods sparked Americans' interest in retreating from prior isolationist years and entering an era of increased American involvement globally to seek overseas markets for goods. That's the first part of their thesis. Let's just make sure we got their whole context, folks. Their context ends right there at Standard Oil. They've got all of this description of American industrialization. That is the stage they're going to set. Their thesis statement, guys, is going to be based probably on economic motives. I'm guessing they'll have some racial motives too, but they're setting the stage for economic motives by providing us with the economic context. They're talking about industrialization, new markets, and expansion. Very well said. Now let's read their thesis one more time. Yet as time went on, the growing surplus of manufactured goods sparked American interest in retreating from prior isolationist years and entering an era of increased American involvement globally to seek overseas markets for goods. There we go. It's economic motives right off the bat. They're very clear with it. Thus, an age of imperialism began as America rushed to catch up with other colonizing nations and experienced a growth in motives to expand. The United States primarily sought to increase its role in the world due to its notion that America and the American lifestyle was superior, and to also gain strategic territory to expand their influence globally. Despite these strong imperialist sentiments, however, there were still many who were against the movement and considered it a moral wrongdoing. So, folks, this is a really long but very well-constructed thesis. Let's just kind of break it down real quick and see what they're going to talk about in the rest of the essay. They are going to prove, folks, that we have economic motives for being there. That was really clear. This is a long, complex thesis, and they made the economic motives clear in the beginning. But then they're jumping into some other motives here, folks. And for those of you that know your vocabulary, you know that they just described American exceptionalism. Increase its role in the world due to the notion that America and the American lifestyle was superior. So that's something they're going to address. They're going to address American exceptionalism. Then they're going to address something about strategic needs, so something about a naval need or a military need, possibly to defend America's interests there economically. Okay. And then they're also telling us there's going to be some opposition to this. People are going to consider it morally wrong. Folks, that's what the rest of the essay needs to be about. If you're not telling me about American exceptionalism, this is that line right here, America and the American lifestyle. If you're not telling me about it being strategic, if you're not telling me about, wanting to catch up to other nations or about economic motives, it doesn't really belong in this essay. Everything we say needs to defend what we just wrote. You can get the points, folks, without it being this complex. This one's really high level. So it's important that we also read the other examples further down that show us one that, is a little bit more realistic for, a student that may not be a perfect APUSH student. So anyhow, let's keep going down here. One of the primary reasons behind imperialism was the general assumption that America was better in many regards to other nations. Josiah Strong claimed that as a superior white Anglo-Saxon race, America, which was still largely white, must expand to other lands to impress its superior democracy, Christianity, and lifestyle on them. They properly used document 2, folks. They summarized it in a way that supports their claim. Remember, folks, part of their claim was about essentially America's superiority. They used document 2 to support it. Now look at how they do the sourcing. Remember my sentence starter that I'm trying to get you to steal? The viewpoint of document 2 proves blah, blah, blah. That was the kind of simple sentence starter I was giving you. Look at this person's sentence starter. And remember, the author of document 2 is Strong. They already said that up there. Strong clearly speaks to other imperialists to convince them that America has the obligation to expand lands that do not share similar lifestyles to America and that they do not have a similar government. That's the viewpoint. That's how they got that sourcing information, guys. So this is how they used a document not only to support their thesis statement, they used it properly in terms of the viewpoint. If we look back on the rubric here, folks, that's that very first point right here on the analysis section. They explained how or why the point of view was relevant to the argument. Cool. Hopefully I haven't lost you yet. We'll keep on going. America, let's see. I started right here. Okay. Similarly, Captain Alfred Mann argued for a stronger navy to complement the obvious superiority of America and to take part in imperialism in order to increase the nation's influence on the weaker Caribbean and Central American countries. Document 3. Remember their thesis. They said we did it for strategic motives. That is proved by document 3. Let's now look at how they sourced document 3. Once again, that's their sentence starter, folks. Instead of saying document 3 clearly demonstrates, their sentence starter is to use the author's name. It's probably better than mine, frankly. Once again, Mann shares the sentiment that it is crucial to expand to other lands due to America's superiority and global capability. These sentiments would come to arise during the Spanish-American War, where America gained greater control of territories like Cuba, Puerto Rico, the Philippines, and the Sandwich Islands, as seen in document 4. The point of view of the artist is actually critical of Americans' policy of imperialism, seeing as a sign of America's ego and its superiority and greed. I can tell you right off the bat, folks, that they not only use document 4 appropriately, here, they've sourced it. Guys, they've done this perfect so far. They've used 3 documents appropriately that support their claim. All of these are clearly found in their thesis, and they've used the sourcing information for all of these documents. Some of you guys that have just been summarizing the documents, hopefully you're seeing how they're connecting it directly back to their thesis. And then right after they connect it to their thesis, they do the sourcing. They say another sentence or two of analysis. That's the sourcing information. They're knocking it out of the park so far. They've got 3 documents done appropriately, and 3 of them have been sourced properly. Many anti-imperialists at the time, remember part of their thesis statement, guys, was about anti-imperialism and people, objecting to this war. I'm seeing it show up right down here. This is awesome. Many anti-imperialists at the time saw imperialism as a moral wrong to America, due to America, ironically, once being a colonized land, as well as being hypocritical in its policies towards other foreign lands. However, this failed to stop many imperialist goals. In the Philippines, America tried to forcibly impose, and I don't believe that there is a anti-imperialist source on there, so that could count as their, or is there? I honestly can't remember. They didn't cite it as one. Anyhow, I think that's going to count as their evidence beyond the document right there. The Anti-Imperialist League. I think that's what would count it. Let's keep going. In the Philippines, America tried to forcibly impose American standards of education and government on the Filipinos. Otherwise, they would use military force. That was another cartoon. Hopefully you remember that cartoon, folks. Now let's see if they sourced it properly. At the time, rebels like Emilio Aguinaldo fought back against imperialist America, but to no real success due to America's persistence in spreading their superior lifestyle. It's not the most academically stated, but that's their sourcing information for it. Hopefully you see how they did it there. So I'm counting 4 documents used properly, and I'm counting, that's probably sourced properly too. If not, they've got at least 3 sourced properly, which is enough for full credit right off the bat. So they've already got full credit for sourcing, even though 6 is a little bit weaker than the others. But that's 4 documents used so far. Guys, if this were the new rubric that we're doing on Friday, where you only get 5 documents, that right there is all the documentation they need to use. 4 out of those 5 for full credit. They only need to do sourcing for 2 out of those 4. Let's see the rest of it. They got just a little bit more. Apart from America's alleged superiority, another reason for expansion in the world was to gain strategic territory for influence in global affairs. The very roots of America stepping into imperialism in the time period can be traced back to the very years after the Civil War. And this is that Russian document from document 1, which is hard for me to use. America signed a treaty with Russia, allowing for the cession of Russian land in North America and surrounding islands. Document 1. That to me is more of just a summary. The very roots of America stepping into imperialism can be traced back. I don't love how they use document 1, but remember, guys, you don't have to use every document perfectly to get full credit. You know, I'm not a perfect AP grader either. It looks like they did give them credit because this is the DBQ that got a 7. I'm really nitpicking them. Remember, this is a first draft. Your DBQs don't have to be perfect, folks. If you stress yourself out about writing a perfect DBQ, you know, you're gonna cause yourself some undue harm. But anyhow, I was critiquing their use of document 1. I don't love it, but they attempted. This theme of North American dominance can be connected to the Monroe Doctrine, oh good, in which it was declared that European powers could no longer claim territory in North America. The treaty shows how much the U.S. wanted to expand their influence on the Americas. John Hay, Secretary of State, also negotiated a policy in which foreign powers to China would agree to maintain an open door policy to protect China's own interests and maintain peace. Document 5. That's the description of the Burlingame Treaty in Document 5, and they appropriately used it to support their thesis. However, the main motive behind the open door note was to allow for easier access for America to gain markets in China and gain strategic influence there. That's their sourcing. Good. Furthermore, that's what I would say the historical context. Remember, guys, you don't always have to do viewpoint. I normally do viewpoint. The viewpoint of document 2 proves that Americans weren't quite ready to break away yet. That's my sentence. That's my go-to viewpoint. But this person didn't use viewpoint there. They used historical context. They know America needs new markets to open up to. So they use the document to support the claim right up here. And then down here below, they use the context of open door to use the sourcing. This person's very, very good at this. Furthermore, President Roosevelt claimed that it is imperative for stronger nations like America to intervene in unstable countries and maintain international police power. Document 7, they've summarized it there. From the point of view of a staunch imperialist, Roosevelt believed that by intervening in weaker countries, America would gain more influence in the world with its increased presence. Thus, his sentiments would lead to the creation of the Roosevelt corollary to the Monroe Doctrine, where he justified American intervention in Latin America to protect democratic interest, but really also to gain more global power, an objective America constantly sought after the Civil War. The Roosevelt corollary, guys, that also counts as evidence beyond the documents. That's not a document that they gave you, so that also counts. Also can be considered an analysis point because it's outside of the time period. This Monroe Doctrine, guys, is like the 18 teens. We're like in the 1890s right now. So they've tried to, this is actually going to count. They've already got their documents beyond the evidence point. This is going to count as their deep analysis point for a connection to a different time period. Great job. Although America did seem to begin its imperialist roots in the era of industrialization, after the Civil War to promote its superiority and gain influence, it should be noted that these behaviors continued onto decades of the 20th century, such as after World War I with the occupation of Germany, to extend influence and also in the Middle East and the later part of the century for strategic oil interests. Indeed, America's expansionist policies have not disappeared, and many have criticized America's ulterior motives. This author is very critical of America's motives here in the early 20th century. Guys, they really have 2 points that could count as their deep analysis. I'm really thinking that Monroe Doctrine would work 70 years prior. I also think this could work here. So that's a phenomenal DBQ, and that got a score of 7 out of 7. So we're going to do very quickly. I want you guys to scroll down to the worst DBQ sample, which is on page 20. I think it's important to read bad ones as well as good ones because you guys all personally know where you're at. I have vague ideas where you're at, but I want to try to be done with this in about 5 to 8 minutes here. Anyone have a question so far on that first one or any observation or anything you wanted to bring up?
What could you use for, they got 7 out of 7 when they connected it to World War I, but what is another time period that you could connect that to?
I could, Aaron. So remember, a huge part of the motive for, you know, the expansion is the white man's burden, and that concept of social Darwinism we talked about. We looked at all those cartoons about civilizing the Filipinos and everything, and so I would connect that to something like Native Americans, perhaps.
Okay, that's why I connected.
and assimilation on the Great Plains.
Okay.
Or, you know, the Indian Removal Act of the, you know, so there's a whole bunch. I would do it to Native American assimilation for another option. Good question. Cool. All right, guys, let's read. Oh yeah, go ahead.
How important is it to use like the specific vocabulary terms? Like if you were to summarize like the removal, like Native American removal, but not actually specify that name, like would it still count?
Generally, yes, Madison. I would need to see the specific example, but generally I can say yes. If you describe it accurately, but don't like, so if you describe the Monroe Doctrine accurately in 2 sentences, but you didn't say Monroe Doctrine, I believe you are still going to get it. You know, this will be my first year grading the AP test. So I've been to 2 different trainings with AP graders, though, conferences in the past, Madison. And they really, really are looking to give people points when they can. So I believe that if you accurately describe it, you know, and it's an accurate, legit description, but you don't specifically mention the term, you're going to be okay.
Cool.
So don't stress that. Any other questions before we do one more? Yeah, go ahead.
I'm looking at the rubric, and it says for thesis claim that the thesis must consist of 1 or more sentences located in one place, either introduction or conclusion. Is it better to have it in the introduction or the conclusion, or does it not matter?
It doesn't matter, but I can't imagine why someone would put it in the, I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't criticize anyone's writing, but my brain just doesn't work that way. And I don't know how to teach a structure where you're putting it at the end. I think the reason they worded that is because some people start off their DBQs really weak and confused, but by the end they've summarized something intelligent. And so I think that they wrote this rubric, and the wording has been the same on this. That wording was the same before this, you know, coronavirus stuff. I think they worded it that way to give people who maybe they just weren't clear in the beginning. It was muddled, but by the end, they were able to synthesize something coherent into a statement, and as kind of a conclusion, they can count that.
Okay, thank you.
That's why I believe they did that. So anyhow. Oh, I'm sorry. Bye, Ella. Hopefully that was helpful. We'll catch you later. Anyone else who has to log off can totally log off. I just want to go for a few more minutes. Let's read on page 20. This one, guys, is only going to get, I believe, a 2. I think it's a 2. We could scroll up and find out, but I think it's going to get a 2. Let's take a look real quick. The importance or reasons the United States of America are expanding their role in the world from 1865 to 1910 are widespread. In document 1, it talks about how the United States was a place of employment and advantage for immigrants, something they were not getting in their own civil country, and how their rights and religion would be protected. I thought, yeah, I don't know if that's used properly, but even let's pretend, guys, that the summary, let's pretend that they summarized it accurately, which they didn't do. There's really no way that supported a claim. They're just saying that their claim is so vague, you know, expanding role for are widespread. Okay, that's way too vague. How can I defend it? They're wide. It's just it's not enough. So you got to be slightly more specific in a thesis statement. I mean, I just don't see how you can possibly defend it. Technically, that is a claim that the role that the reasons are widespread, but it's just so vague. I don't see how it can really be successfully defended further down. Document 1, it looks like right here. I think that's a 1. They just didn't summarize it properly, and there's really no way that America being a place of, you know, a place for jobs for new immigrants, and their religion being protected. That's what they write here. Like, oh, they're not getting what they need in their own country, and their rights and religion are protected. I just don't see how that is even at all relevant to a claim about America's expanding role. So they're confuzzled. In document 2, it talks about religion and immigration and how countries from the East have migrated to the West. Just pretend that was not, you know, that sounded okay. Do you see their format, guys? In document 2, blah, blah, blah. In document 3, blah, blah, blah. I have people that do that, but, you know, just write smarter stuff after they say it. You shouldn't start off a paragraph or a sentence like that, guys. You can definitely say in document 2, the point of view. I don't want you to think like I can't use the phrase in document 2. You can totally use the phrase in document 2. But look at their format. It's just a list. In document 2, in document 3. That's not what you want. In document 4. So Let's just finish reading it. It's really short. In document 3, it talks about how the United States needed to further expand its navy at sea or develop some type of navy to defend its shorelines. This is accurate. This is good. So their shipping and markets will be protected. Good. And they're not ready at the moment to assert full control in the Caribbean or Central America. That one was used really well. So document 3 is very good. I got to find a silver lining somewhere. They did document 3 very well here. That's that source about naval power. In document 4, it illustrates how the United States asserts its force power to take control or gain power over the other countries around the world. The United States going to or taking over other countries will indeed expand their role. This one just doesn't, this person doesn't have good enough grammar to really even make any sense or logic. These are the last 2 paragraphs they wrote. In document 6, it shows how the United States gave the Filipino people a choice either to learn the American culture and religion and allow the United States to change their country and to take it over, or to have an all-out war with the United States. Okay, that's accurate. I mean, they worded it pretty poorly, but it's accurate. And this was another negative way the United States expanded. Okay, document 6 also is not horrible. You know, I don't love the wording on it, but document 6 and document 3 are not horribly used. And they rewrote document 6 again. So, but it's different. They just got their numbers confused. In document 6, President Theodore Roosevelt talks about how the United States does not have the right to blank over any country, and that the United States, yeah. So no, they totally botched that one. So guys, they did use document 6 and document 3 in a way I'm happy with. Real quick, let's go up to let's see what they wrote for. Scroll down to, let's see the score for that crappy one. Okay. This is the score for that crappy one we just read, guys. It got a 1. Just like I kind of thought, they didn't award that point for a thesis. All that person said was the reasons the reasons were widespread. They did not award that a point. There's no discussion of causation, but rather only assertion that the expansion was widespread. They had no context. They didn't even attempt context. And they did get 1 point for using 2 documents, it looks like. For document 6. Okay, they actually counted. I only counted 2 documents. Apparently, the graders were slightly more generous on this. They counted 3 documents. And that makes sense because you have to get at least on the normal rubric. When you get 7, you got to use at least 3 to get 1 point. It's, remember, on that old school rubric, it's 1 point for 3 documents and the second point for 4. On our rubric, guys, that we're worrying about, we get 1 point for 2 documents, and we get the next point for 4 documents. And again, that is right here. 1 point for 2, a second point for 4. Cool. Hopefully that was helpful. So I'm going to stop that recording right there. I'm going to stay logged on for